Watson. I'm the managing director for Sparsile, and one of the conditions I had for becoming managing director was I'd never have to do this, stand up and talk to people. But our sales manager's off ill, so I'm filling in place, so that's why I'll do a lot of reading for this. But I just would like to invite Judith and Anne, or just introduce Judith and Anne for our little event tonight. Judith's originally from Edinburgh, but I promised not to hold that against her.
Oh God.
So there we go. She's trained as a musician and indeed at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama and the Northern College of Music, I believe. And she's been a professional opera singer and has toured the halls of Britain and Europe, apparently, so that's very impressive.
Kind of.
Yes, and even more impressively, she's a bit of a change of career and become a BBC television presenter. And
a mum.
And a mum, yes. That's not down here. Yeah, so that's including the heights of weather presenting and actually lots of other TV programmes we've heard of. Children in Need, Comic Relief, Landlords, more impressive to me, the Fred McCauley Show, and Off the Ball, and the Andrew Marr Show. So that's it. She's also done a lot of corporate events and charity balls and things like this. So we're very glad that she's been able to come here.
And of course.
Even because she's come despite her ankle injury, which was suffered
filming.
Yes, filming the next series of Scotland's Great Escape.
That's
so
right, yeah.
not quite.
Watch out for the sticky one.
Surgical
boots, surgical shoe.
Indeed. So Anne, you probably all know Anne, but she's born on the south side of Glasgow and been a GP for many years. And she graduated from Glasgow University a few years ago, and more interesting, and graduated from Oxford in medical anthropology, which is actually. There we go.
She's my big sister.
But in retirement, she took a course in creative writing and has started writing about women in medicine, which you don't really get that much of outside Mills and Boon's novels and TV autopsy series. So she's become a Bloody Scotland Spotlight author, one to watch. And she's a member of several writers groups and reviews books and on her website. At Sparsile, we're very proud to publish her, and I'd like to let her talk about her latest book.
Thank you. How proud I am of Anne. I've watched her develop as an author over the years and read all. I'm a number one fan, and Alex was saying he hasn't read any of her books, so he's going to start reading them. But anyway, that's the first thing I'd say. What an honour it is to come again to interview you at the launch of another book, and all power to your elbow, and you're so lazy. You haven't just become a granny again and helping your invalided husband and whatnot, so well done for you. So I'll start with a few questions about the book. So let's start with another book. This is your fourth one, is it?
Yes, I didn't intend writing 4 books. I thought I would write one book about women in medicine and what it was like in the 70s. And the idea was also to maybe have a wee look at medical ethics, and that was going to be one book and that was it. But somehow or other it took wings, and there had to be another book and then another book. And so the first 2 books have the same characters, but this book has completely different characters. Still 2 girls, but not the same ones.
What made you keep going? Do you just have these ideas and the kind of need to explore the stories and put it on paper?
I think writing is a bit sort of addictive. There are a couple of people here from our Glasgow writing group, and it's particularly in a group like that, and to send in a chapter or something every month. And there are lots of ideas, and medicine is such a kind of widespread sort of collection of people you meet and anecdotes you find, and there's lots and lots of things to write about. And so it's not really been that hard to kind of write the books. And my husband may differ, but fortunately he's a very good cook, so he's lifting his glass there. If I do get carried away, then he's not averse to sticking a chicken in the oven or cooking dinner.
But you need to speak up a bit, you think?
It's a bit addictive writing, and you need a good husband, is what I said, who can cook.
hair.
Yes.
Did you hear that, Fraser, when I get my first book out?
You've had your first book out.
Oh, I have, I forgot about that,
Yes, Jude
What's the
has
weather?
produced a weather book for children, which I must get a copy of, signed
But
for Rudy.
I've got one at home actually
Right.
as a present for your
Thank
granddaughter.
you. So I think it is a bit sort of addictive. I think there's a couple of the guys, there's a few people coming, haven't managed to get here, but a couple of guys here, it kind of gets you when you're writing. Once you start, it's difficult to stop.
And the people who are here from the writing classes, do you all offer each other, support, camaraderie?
Yes.
Camaraderie?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've really sort of lived through Anne's novel as well. It's
Uh-huh.
great to live through that whole experience and see it come to fruition, which is a rare thing, really.
Yeah, and they're good. They're good. I mean, people will say, "Well, I'm not sure that's working," or
So you get constructive criticism.
constructive criticism. Yeah.
Probably nice to do that when we were at music college, weren't we?
Did you?
Best voice in our year.
Best voice. There you go. So certainly, writing the books. This last one was written very quickly, Phil.
Was it?
Yeah, the
How
first-
did you find that? The kind of, was it just all
more
pouring out the
difficult.
ideas?
No, much more
No,
difficult.
right.
Much more difficult. But I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. But certainly, I find writing once you start it, it's difficult to stop.
Is it?
Occasionally, I go to bed very, very late.
Uh-huh.
But now, as I get older, I'm better in the morning.
It must be so satisfying managing to get all those ideas down on paper.
Well, then you think that, and then Sparse Isle has been a different editing experience to my other books. Really good editors, and make you really kind of think and completely reconstructed the story. And,
Really?
Yeah, in many ways. Same stuff's there, but just rearranged much better, more effectively.
more effectively, so it's good to get that
Absolutely.
constructive criticism. That's interesting. So, what did you want to bring out in Medicine, Money, and Murder?
Well, when Sparse Isle Books very kindly took over my first two medical books, Leslie said, "Well, we'd like you to write another medical book. Have you got anything ready?" And I said, "Well, no. I've got a book about the Second World War." And she said, "No, I'd like a medical book." And then I remembered that I had started writing a book when I was a student, went to America in 71, and when I came back, I'd started writing a book. And I said, "Oh, I can maybe develop that." And when I came back from America, of course, you're straight into fourth year, which became the finals, and the finals became graduation, and then 4 days later we got married, and so it was just hived off. But the book started off originally in Glasgow, in Bars Road here, in fact, in an Italian restaurant. But when Jim, who sadly isn't with us tonight, got it, he said, "Well, I think you should take out the first bit. It's quite different. It reads more like a kind of young romance or a young adult." And I was a different person then, and it didn't fit, so it went. Which is very similar to Kathy, who runs our Glasgow group, with my first book. She said to me that she liked it, but she thought the first 3 chapters had to go because they weren't necessary. So there's a thing, and maybe I should just always turf the first 3 chapters.
So the first 2 chapters that you wrote before qualifying, these are the ones that were binned.
I had a different, what is in this book, no plot spoilers, I couldn't have written then because I didn't really think about health in the wider sort of sense, really.
Let's just look at it and see. So, are you allowed to see what it's kind of who the characters are?
Well, the characters fine. There's 2 main characters in it. There's Vary, and they're both from the south side of Glasgow, and they're both medical students, and they're going out after their 3rd year. And Vary is a very anxious kind of girl, went to ordinary school, and she's got family issues. And the other girl went to private school. She's self-assured. She has travelled quite a lot, so she is a kind of worldly wise. And so the pair of them set off, and it certainly, I felt I was thinking a lot about the NHS when I was writing it, because it's got into such a state now.
You must see that through your career.
Well, I've seen it through the career, seen it now in personal experience. And so I decided that I would look at what happens when money's in the equation, and how doctors can make money and sometimes not to the patients.
This is why Medicine, Money,
and Murder.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Indeed. Yeah. And also, although it's cosy crime, it's also got a bit of a kind of moral bit to it. I mean, the first book was really about Me Too and about misogyny, And the second book was
Misogyny medicine? No.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, in fact, when I talked to...
Misogyny broadcasting? No.
Oh, I've had that conversation before. But when I talked to students at university here with the first book, and they were asked if any of them had been sexually harassed or propositioned, there was a wee forest of hands. So it's not unknown. So so I think there were several reasons that the story developed. One was looking at what happens when money's in the equation, and the other thing, which is the biggest memory I have from my summer, was in Casualty, where there was a young lad who obviously had a migraine, which I had one at the beginning of the week, flashing lights, couldn't see, terrible headache, and instead of giving him a migraine treatment, they sent him for a brain scan. And when I said to the guy, he's obviously got a migraine, why are you doing that? And he said, you got to always remember the sparrows and the hummingbirds. You look for the hummingbirds, because if you miss a hummingbird, a rare diagnosis, you'll get your ass sewed off. So then you go back and tell them it's a sparrow, it's called a girl. That stuck with me. And actually I wanted to call the book Sparrows and Hummingbirds, but the powers that be quite sensibly decided that it didn't indicate it was a crime novel. So I nearly said, can you not put at the bottom also called Sparrows and Hummingbirds? But it's in the story anyway. I thought that was...
it's funny, I'm watching anything from Netflix with my foot up at night, something to switch off, and it's a Netflix drama set in a hospital. I've got quite engrossed in it. It's the same thing, they're charging a fortune. Yeah, and I'd never noticed that before in anybody. Yeah, so it's all about money, isn't it? So the main characters, is it Valley, and who's the other one?
Valley, and the other one is Laura. She's the sort of slightly posh girl, and Mary is the girl, and they went straight to school. Another thing that, sorry, James isn't here tonight, because I was going to sort of go on. He's quite right. I use the word girls far too often, and that's being not politically correct.
What you meant to say nowadays?
Young ladies or young women or something, I think. But to be honest, as a writer, I use the word girls. He actually counted them in his whatnot and told me, so I did my best to get rid of them. But the point of the story with them was that when it came to the university class, when we were talking about, I was writing stories about university students, and they couldn't believe how things were then without internet, and how did you manage without mobile phones. And it was worse going to America, because we certainly, my friend Jean and I, and Sally can't be here tonight, we went and had a tremendous time, but everything was new and weird, and people don't realise that without Google and the internet and Facebook, and even the films were very Doris Day, and they weren't real. Everything was really strange to us. So he thought there was a wee bit too much of it. So we cut a bit of it out, but it still was a huge part of the experience. Quite a difference. And the funniest one was when the language as well. A guy came up in the canteen the first week we were there and said to Jane, "Hi, I'm Randy." Now that was his name. But we didn't know that was a name. So Jane said, "Oh, are you really?" I didn't know what to say. So that went in the book. Yeah, because it wasn't the kind of, we didn't really know that.
Anybody called Randy? That's very clear.
No. But we learned that the proper word for that is horny. So
in the States?
In the States it's horny.
Well, I'll remember that next time I'm in the States.
Hi, I'm horny! We didn't know because it was like, America was like Doris Day films or Dr. Kildare that I used to run home from. Guys to watch.
Emergency Ward 10, was that
Dr. Kildare was American, and he had blonde hair, I can't remember his name. You're too young to remember him.
Richard Chamberlain.
Yeah,
he did the Thornbirds as well.
I think he's still kicking around, isn't he?
He might well be.
Unfortunately, like all the good looking ones, gay. If you'd like to see that nowadays.
Yeah, I think you're allowed to say that, or maybe you're not, I'm not sure. It almost makes me think of Aunt Nan Scott, who used to say, "Oh, it's frightfully gay," and she meant it in the proper.
Yeah, my mum used that all the time.
Yeah.
So the girls are obviously heroines, but how about the baddies then?
Well, these baddies were really good tonight. I was stuck for the arch baddie's name, and one night in a video call with my son, I said I can't think of a name for him, and he had a guy who I think he's his financial director, the CEO in a biophysics company. And his name was Van Lindholm, not Von Lindholm. So I thought that sounded quite sinister and and Scandinavian, so that became his name. So in fact, I have to promise the guy, apparently, I don't know if he'll like it when he sees our barriers, but I've promised him a signed copy, so I'll need to do something about that. So one is a Hispanic guy, and the other guy is just an evil bee, really. But really, once you start writing these people, once I write a picture of everybody before I start what I think they're like.
Okay.
And so with him,
And does that help when you?
yeah, it has, because you kind of think how he might think coming from that. It helped doing psychiatry, I think, too.
Do you find that when you're writing, you've got a visual picture of your
Yes.
character? Yeah.
The first book I actually painted them all, pictures of them all, but I didn't do that this time.
So when I'm reading a book, I don't know about anybody else here, I definitely have visual pictures of what the characters look like.
And Jack Reacher is never 5'7" and he should be 6'6" in the films. So that, and Dr. Zhivago, Omar Sharif, was completely wrong. I've said that before at things. Completely wrong, absolutely.
I've not read that one yet, actually.
So, he was obviously a very clever chap, this guy, but he was deadly, and I gave him a long-suffering wife, and she became a bit of a character. The best things are when you wake up in the morning and just type something and don't change it. And there's a bit of her, which it's probably the best bit of the book, but she's a subsidiary character. But anyway, so it's got murders in it, and I had advanced an earlier murder because I was told that maybe we should have some of you but more excitement earlier. So there was a character that was annoying me, so I just bumped her off. I thought she was becoming a bit of a caricature, so I made everybody sorry for her. She got bumped off.
She got bumped off. When you're planning, having never written a novel,
what's planning?
You're not supposed to. That's what I was going to ask you. So you just kind of go by the cuff, by the.
Well, no, I had a plan. I always have a plan, but I never quite get there, and then things get swapped round.
That must make it interesting, I suppose.
Yeah.
You can stumble across. That's it. Bingo! I've got the idea. I've got the right. Yeah. So what's planning? Right. Okay, I like that. So backtrack a wee bit. Classed as a cosy crime. No, cosy crime. What does that mean?
Well, cosy crime's always been around a bit, but if you look at the biggest sellers of books in the last few years, the biggest sellers are romances.
Are they?
And second to that is crime, and amongst crime, the biggest sellers are cosy crimes. And there's as many definitions of that as I've had hot dinners, but it's kind of where you don't go into the blood and the gore too much, and the murders usually happen off-piste, if you like.
Right.
So it's not as disturbing and forensic as Silent Witness or something. Though I watched that quite happily when I realised that the same red plastic, supposedly somebody's thorax opened up, that they just put on top of all the actors. I thought it's just a bit plastic. Because even as a medic, I found that quite disturbing. So cosy crime it's got its own system. It's usually there's some really likeable characters in it. There's a puzzle. People like
that's
puzzles.
Kind of the crime I read, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
it's a comfortable read.
It's like TV programmes who are trying to reckon who's done it. Although you don't want to watch TV with Norman because he always knows who's done it. And it's not just the Terry Wogan idea that in Midsummer Murders you just looked at who's the most expensively paid actor and he did it, which is often true. But so I got the Bloody Scotland accolade really for writing about the first book. Somebody burnt an incriminating body, but it wasn't actually there wasn't a murder in the first book. The second book was nothing but murders. I lost track of how many there were, but usually it's murder, but it can be something like a heist or something, or something like that. Could be a cosy crime, but usually they are people who are amateur sleuths usually in it, and usually it's a nice setting. The typical one is Agatha Christie's St Mary Mead. She's really the queen of crime, although I did notice a bit posted called me the mistress of crime on one of the Facebooks from the Sparsa.
Like you see Richard Osman and Richard Coles have
Richard Osman, Richard Coles have turned out enormous sales, particularly Richard Osman sold building, and Agatha Christie, who I reliably informed sold probably 2 billion books, has done. She hated being called a crime author, and she actually wrote under several different names, but she hated being called that. And I believe from Lucy Worsley's book, which is very interesting about Agatha Christie, that she grew to loathe Poirot. She just hated Poirot. as I say, crime's the second most popular after romance, but there's loads of different kinds, and there's a book called Tartan Noir, I don't know if they've got it in here, by someone called Len Warner, and it was originally his PhD, so he put it into a book, and it tells you all about every kind of crime. The first one's supposed to be Murder in the Rue Morgue, which was 18 something or other, 1840 or something, and that's supposed to be the first crime novel. It's I found some authors in there that I'd never heard of that I've read since. So he's an Edinburgh writer. I think he also writes thrillers as well, but I haven't explored them.
And what do you think makes us like crime as readers?
Well, there has been research on that, you know. I had to do a bit of research myself, since I had to recently give a chat to a very large audience of people in Mogai. And I think there's four main reasons. One is, again, this business about we like the puzzles. And we also like sort of relatable characters. And there is the fact that, I know this too from anthropology studies, people are fascinated by death. People have always wanted to know what people died of. They are interested a bit in, not necessarily blood and gore, but how people died and how they might avoid it themselves. That goes way back into the mists of time. But mostly they say it's because people like order being restored and they like good overcoming evil. But that's not the case in quite a number of books. I was reading Mick Herron's Slow Horses, which apparently is a very good series, but we don't have Apple TV or whatever it's on. And the end of the first book, I actually threw it down and discussed because it didn't have a proper ending. Of course, you immediately got to book 2. But the modern way in teaching is to say, creative writing is you shouldn't resolve things too much, you should leave things open.
Do you know, I've noticed a lot about books nowadays as well, is they go chapter by chapter to each character. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, that's quite a trend. I've tended not to do that. Sometimes I'll have a vignette.
I get distracted by that, actually.
A vignette of, usually in order, but of one particular character's kind of point of view, which will draw something else in. And I got a row also for head hopping, because there's a narrator, the girl Barry narrates the book, but there's bits she can't know about. And so I would have a bit that would be in 2-3 other people's heads. And I thought it was quite obvious, but apparently it wasn't. So that has to be done. But series are another thing. People like to know what they're getting. It's easy to find. But you can overdo that.
Because I think the thing about reading, isn't it, switching off and escaping from your... That's my huge guilty pleasure. And there's nothing I like more than, you know, we're odd shifts, but my husband will tell you, I've got to have that half-hour read, haven't I? It's my, the only way I really unwind with that happening.
Well, another fact I discovered for the talk in Bears Den was that reading 2.5 hours a week of fiction, something you escape into, can add 2 years to your life.
Right.
So there you go. So don't feel guilty when the housework needs done. Just go and read.
How did you know? Yeah, so that was yeah, I think reading that to me is my big passion. I read practically anything. There's very little I won't read. There's been one book recently I've had to
I couldn't read 50 Shades of Grey, and I couldn't read Winter
Dolphins. Oh, it's great! No, I'm joking. 50 Shades of Grey to me are clouds. I did put down a chick lit book because, oh god, I got started and I thought this is too much. No. So anyway, but yeah, we'll read most things. Are your cosy crime books a series, do you think?
Well, the first 2 go together. I don't know if this is part of a second sense.
Because the last one you did was completely different, wasn't it?
The Oxford one was completely and utterly different. It was a teacher with a lot of input from my teaching friends. And her name was Judith.
That's right.
I didn't
Fraser.
Did I have Fraser?
Her name was Fraser. Sorry.
Oh, her name was Fraser. Well, they must have just been out with you and Fraser. Inspiration comes from many circles.
I enjoyed that. That was really interesting. That mustn't take a heck of a lot of research.
Well, I was there for a year, so a lot of it I knew already. Oh, the old Gilgamesh book I knew. It was. I discovered that was researching it. It's very interesting.
So yeah, the first two about Beth, they're a series.
They're a series. Yeah. She goes from being a student right up to being a GP.
And a mother and
a mum.
Yeah. So this one, do you think this might be a series, part of a series?
I don't know. I'm having a rest just now.
Oh, you're resting. Yes. All great artists do that. How authentic is the book? And did you have to do a lot of research?
Well, I did go to America in 1971, as most of us did. I'm sorry, I'm not quite sure when there were several people my year who were coming tonight who must be stuck in a subway or a jam. but quite a few people gave me stories.
Oh, did they? And your contemporaries from uni?
From uni. We all went to different places. I went with my friend Jean, and people went all over the place, and some of the people who went out went back and practiced there. So the details of how the hospital ran, I didn't know. So I sent my first draft to a very nice chap, Douglas Lees, in my year, who's a prominent vascular surgeon in Idaho. No, not in Idaho, Michigan. Who's obviously done very well because his holiday house in Florida is 3 times the size of our current house, but he's obviously done well. He's a nice chap, and he was able to correct all my misconceptions. I thought the medical director was in charge, but hospitals have presidents.
Right, who are non-medical?
They're often non-medical, and they're run by a board, which may or may not be charitable. So there's a lot of things I didn't know, so I needed help with all of that.
You're still in touch with him then?
Yeah, well, of course, we just had our 50-year reunion, and I was in the reunion committee. So when we sent out the details about it, the girl who was doing the organising, the secretary, sent out Anne's writing another book, and do you have any stories? And one guy actually sent me a great big long, almost diary account of his summer, which he'd obviously, it was in the deep south, and it was quite troubling. I didn't actually go much into problems with black patients, although we were aware of quite a few things like that about the bus. We were still going to the back of the bus.
When he went out and
but he certainly put me right about all the bits and pieces of it. So I didn't have to do research about the day-to-day things that are happening. And of course I've watched lots of ER as well. Can't be that different.
George Clooney.
George Clooney, there you
He's
go.
a dish. Do all doctors look like that?
Well, unfortunately we haven't got any of them here for you to compare.
So, but Anne, you know, I'm always in admiration for you, because 1971 to go to medical school, how many women were in your year?
30%, I think it was.
30%?
I think
That's more than I'd
30 to
expected.
35, I think. When I finished, and then I did my residency year, and then the first year of the rotation for specialising, which I didn't carry on with, that was the 5th year of the first year that was equal intake. And the intake ever since has been more than 50% women.
Right.
Because in our day it was only a few of a few.
Because I look back in some guesses. Right.
No, I was just
So I look just reflecting on it, Polly and I obviously all very old music college friends. I look at orchestras now compared to what it used to be mostly men, and now quite often they're mostly women.
Yeah.
You see, so it's nice to see that, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's really
Fairer sex and all that.
hello, Roy.
Hello.
We have our first medical person. I was just saying there was supposed to be quite a few people from the year here, and you're the only one who's managed to get here.
Oh, right.
So you were in the same year as Anne at
That's
college.
right,
What was she
that's right.
like?
Oh, wonderful.
Well, I was Smith and Roy was just Silva, but we ended up in tutorials and things together, I think.
That's right.
Quite often.
Yeah.
Did you practice here in Glasgow, or did you?
Well, quite a lot abroad, and then I practiced in Rotherham for about 35 years. Or something. Yeah, so still there.
Oh.
So there you go.
It's funny, isn't it? When you go to college, you do meet your friends for life, don't you?
Oh, absolutely.
Your tribe and all
Well,
that.
these two here, this lady was a patient of mine,
Alright.
and through her, I've been trying to get rid of her ever since. Through her we met Jude, and the rest is kind of
Because we were talking about the first day of music college, didn't we?
absolutely bills of residence.
Hello, I'm Polly. Sorry, back to what we were talking about. So, going back to the book again, did you do a lot of research? Did you have to do, and how authentic did all the help you had from your friends and colleagues in America help to make it more and more authentic?
Well, I think so. I mean, obviously, people will be judged on the mistakes in it. That'll be mine. But Douglas Lees from our year became a cardiovascular surgeon, and he actually he did lots of long video calls, which were really hilarious. And he was giving me lots and lots of melodramatic gunshot stories and things from casualty. And I said, well, that doesn't quite fit the story. I'm not, but they might go into another book.
Yeah.
And he just loved being in America. He did all his qualifications here, and then he went out there and he's got the American ones. It's much more difficult to be a specialist there. You have to take your board exams. I think it's every 5 years.
That's right.
Yeah, did you do that?
No, I didn't. No, I escaped from America after an initial visit.
All right.
During
So you
fourth
did.
year, I decided to go elsewhere.
Yeah.
And do you have to do that here as a doctor? No.
You have to do continuous development and do
Uh-huh.
stuff every year. You don't have to reset the whole exams again. I found that quite horrifying. I didn't appreciate that when I was there. I
You
don't.
can sit over read maths. It's not even called OPage anymore, is it? So, how much is much of the narrator vary as you? Because I always hear you in your books. I hear
Well,
you.
you hear people's voice when you,
Uh-huh.
I think, read. Like, Chris writes a book that's so funny, and it's actually very much off the cuff humour, just like he is. But this girl is, well, she's a bit neurotic, which probably I am, but she's lots of family issues and food issues and,
Which
and
you don't
stuff.
have.
No.
Well, I think of food dishes is not eating everything.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I just couldn't imagine a world where you're not allowed to eat carrot cake or so, no, she certainly is not, and I think that happens because my brother-in-law who's here, there's a bit in one of the books where the girl's husband puts butter in Weetabix, which our brother used to do.
He used to do
But
that.
Junior said to me,
Oh, gosh.
so I didn't know Nora put butter in his Weetabix. I said, it's not me, this book, it's a character.
He did. My son did.
He did. Well, our brother did a lot of strange things. He
What
just
does
had
that
his
taste
fourth
like?
book published about convoys.
Oh, all right, okay.
Yes, no, we haven't read them all, have we? It's only a bit long, but we won't get around to doing that.
And I've not written anything. I would.
No, but you do make amazing quiches.
That's a gift.
Yeah. But the stories that in the book, there are things that did happen to me and things happen to other people. And sometimes when you're writing a scene, you think about something you haven't thought for years, and sometimes I can't remember who told me it, even the story. I'm always a wee bit worried that I do. What Julie Cooper once got really sued for one of her books, I don't know which one it was, but she'd had somebody, she'd been at a dinner party and this chap had been telling her some story, and he was a bit of a Hooray Henry, I think, and she put in the book, and she actually used his name subconsciously, and he sued her. She had to pay a fortune. So,
Gosh, I quite like him. Julie Cooper books.
well, I've still got him actually.
Well, apart from Julie Cooper, what do you read? And how do you find your
I read
books?
anything that I can get my hands on, really. I quite often pick up things from Facebook. I mean, quite a lot of groups which are like Rotating Book Club and things, and people will recommend something. I love browsing in bookshops. Sadly, we have no Waterstones or bookshops anywhere near us that are worth anything. And so I do read cosy crime. I think books are like, sometimes I used to have 3 books in the go. I'd have an autobiography, I would have a non-fiction book of some kind, and I would have what I'd call a sort of chocolate box book, which you just dip into.
Depending what mood
And going on holiday, you need rubbish. You know, something that's just going to be really light-hearted. Or
Do you ever read, go back to the classics?
not now. I read so many classics when I was young from Langside Library, which I practically lived in.
I tell you what I read again for the first time in a long time was East of Eden. That's a great
Never
book.
read it.
Oh, it's worth reading.
Okay,
Yeah,
add that to the list.
yeah, it's a
And
long one,
my-
but it's good.
And my son gave me for a Christmas present last year 6 months from Mr. B's Book Emporium. Shouldn't be saying this in here, it's rival. Perhaps Waterstones could do a similar thing if they had. They send you a book every 6 months, and you fill in lots of forms about what you like to read, even what kind of music you like and stuff. And they send you an author and say, we're going to send you an author a book by this. What have you read any of them? And you can accept it or not. And I found some great books in that I would never have picked up.
It never ceases to amaze me how many books there are. I get the fear that I'm going to have read everything.
No, there's
What am I going to read? What am I going to read?
I don't know if it's true, Leslie. I think it's supposed to be about 1 million books or something often. And there's a lot of stuff.
Do you read on a Kindle or?
I read both. I prefer a book.
Yeah, I do.
And in
I
fact,
think
reading a
it's-
book is better for your health than reading a Kindle.
I can't get the Kindle thing. I need.
No,
I
it's
buy a
okay
lot
if you're
of second-hand
travelling.
shops, but because
Yeah,
I read
you're
some
travelling.
a lot. I'm always in a second-hand shop looking at books.
But there's an increase in bookshops for entertainment too, and it's lovely that Waterstones usually have coffee shops, but there was some in Manchester and Leeds with attached bars and whatnot. It was in the paper a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, there's a new book restaurant opening or something, isn't
Oh,
there?
there's one opening in Sucky Hall Street somewhere, which I suggested to Kathy, our book person, would be a place for us to have a physical meet-up. So we meet up on Zoom because some of our students that are in this group are now abroad in Greece, or there was one in the south of France we've lost him a bit.
And have you started reviewing books yourself then?
I never used to review books, to be honest, but once I realised how important reviews were, if anyone does read the book, it would be lovely to leave a review somewhere, it doesn't matter where, because unless you're physically in a bookshop, and even there, it's all about algorithms now, and if people don't review the book, it won't be discovered, it won't be found. So if someone has, I don't know what the number is, but so many reviews on a book, and someone is ordering books of that kind, Amazon will flick that up. So though I'm a bit off Amazon just now, because they've said that my book will be delivered next April, and they have lost the blood for it, and I have been writing and the publishers have been trying, and in fact I have it in good authority. Someone says that there's a special place in hell reserved for the techies on Amazon, followed closely by Bill Gates. So I won't tell you who said that, but I'm concurrent, absolutely.
You could deliver them more quickly yourself, couldn't you?
Yeah.
So you don't.
So Waterstones and bookshop.org, who are pay their taxes and help subsidise
and that's
independent
interesting about,
bookshops.
if you leave a review,
It is. It's
I didn't realise
important.
that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And don't be. There's malicious people on Goodreads who go around leaving 1 stars without saying why. I think they just do it for a joke. It's not funny. Don't like that.
Just say why.
Say why. If you don't like it, don't like it.
Yeah, it's just an opinion, isn't it? And the money that you raise from writing and selling these books goes to Plan UK.
Yes, I've been donating subsidising royalty to Plan, who are a children's charity who do all sorts of good work. My daughter was their development officer for a number of years before she went out to Singapore, and they are a very practical charity. They are very, very good at supporting girls particularly, and not just, they do famine, they're part of the emergency relief DER group, but they also are very big in girls' education and trying to prevent and support girls to not get married at age 9 and have babies by 12 and things. And so there's 100 million girls worldwide, possibly more now with Afghanistan, who get no education. And that is an astronomical figure. So any little thing that we can do is, I mean, I've always supported them, but when I get the royalties, that's what I decided I would do them. And the first book was dedicated to girls who didn't get education.
That's so sad. Think of all the great minds and talent that have been lost over the years.
It's terrible.
And finally, your
watch our
publisher
time here.
has an unusual name.
Sparsile. Well, I have to confess, I had no idea what a sparsile was.
No, what is it?
It's a single star which doesn't belong to a constellation, if I believe correctly, which I think is a lovely name for Sparsile, which of course prints quite unusual books. So I feel very privileged to be on their books, and they, in fact, I typed the last line on the thing that of random things I might say. I thank my lucky stars that Sparsile took me up. I thought that was too much for a pun, so I won't say it. But that's...
Are Sparsile based in Scotland?
They're based in
Glasgow.
Yeah. And they have all sorts of really interesting and unusual books. I'm working my way through the list at the moment. And there's another couple out this month. And Leslie has a great book out.
Okay.
So it's... it's a nice company, and it's supported.
Right, and I think Polly's going to do some passages.
Well, we're going to just do a wee quick reading. Super. No, I thought Peter was ready to sum up. Is that okay? Yeah.
Thank you.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
So Polly's going to, my friend Polly, who's also an opera singer and music teacher and some other thing, is going to read a bit of an intro about which puts the book into context, and possibly the third bit, and a little bit about one of the sneaky murders.
Stand up, Polly.
Oh, right, this is the prologue. So here we go. For me, the summer of 1971 was one of shattered misconceptions and mysterious events. For a start, I discovered life in the United States was nothing like Doris Day's in Move Over Darling. For many US citizens, reality didn't involve sweetness, light and apple pie. Democratic access to advancement, prosperity and happiness wasn't automatically a given thing. Instead, many US citizens faced a struggle for survival that left them constantly worrying about money and the costs of healthcare, and open to exploitation. Secondly, Not all doctors were like my TV heartthrob, Dr. Kildare, providing altruistic care with their patients' best interests at heart and open. And when money entered the equation, greed could rear its ugly head. Lives could be destroyed or ended. Cold-blooded murder might even happen. Perhaps most importantly, my fear that I was doomed to spend a lifetime battling neurotic anxiety about sin, sex and salvation proved unfounded. I turned out to be stronger than I thought and discovered some supposed sin was not so bad. The mysterious events I encountered, well, from the day Laura Ellis and I started as students on work experience at New Jersey's Ellis Memorial Hospital, we became aware of peculiar people and odd incidents that we tried to ignore. But then came one inexplicable occurrence we could not disregard. An intriguing young woman patient called Carmela Gomez simply vanished. And that changed everything. Do you like the second one?
Just move on to the third one, I think.
Oh, the third one. So this is the one about the villain. This is from the
about
villain.
No spoilers though.
Early morning, Monday, July 26, 1971, Ellis Memorial Hospital residency. This one he has to do himself. Delegating the last disposal to young Winston was a disaster. How hard could it be to silence that fucking injured whore? He'll not try fixing her again at present. Not completely sure she got a look at his face in any case. And with the extent of her injuries, and he's sure a head injury, she'll likely have post-traumatic amnesia. Couldn't do it for her himself on a surgical floor, too risky. He's a distinctive figure, easily recognisable, who'd have no plausible excuse for creeping around out of hours. But this potential victim resides in a non-public area, and as a more imminent threat to the survival of his lucrative activities, it's a no-brainer. Dressed in an unaccustomed dark sports gear, sneakers and baseball cap, he ascends the 5 flights 2 at a time. He's chosen the time well and meets no one on his way. With Monday mornings in the hospital always busy, he's banking on the fact that an overnight Sunday's no medic stays up. It's now 2:30 a.m. on Monday. Few residents are likely to be wandering around the corridors or stairs. Any staff on night duty will be on their floors or in ER. He enters the secure residency using a master key acquired during an amorous fumble with a nubile Hispanic cleaner. From the recent party, he knows exactly which room is his destination. First on the right, through the lounge. The target door is unlocked. With a gloved hand, he turns the handle to open it. There is no creak. The room is as messy and disorganized as its owner. The task is easily accomplished without sound. A pillow held down by his left elbow, a generous bolus of opiate administered through a neck mole rapidly takes effect. Initial resistance wanes, allowing an immediate venous brachial puncture that gives obvious bleeding in front of the elbow before circulation ceases. Then a syringe and tourniquet are suitably discarded around the left arm. Done. A swift check of the room yields no recognizable documents or papers of note. He distributes the incriminating objects he has brought around the available surfaces and behind some books. A small packet of Juan's crack cocaine, small leaves of foil, a silver spoon, matches, a used candle, some reefers, an empty heroin sachet. Enough. Opening the door gently, he pauses to listen and freezes. A toilet is being flushed up the corridor. Padding feet approach. His heart misses a beat until he hears a nearby door softly close. The muffled footsteps cease. The owner must have returned to his room. Reassuring. If they had continued along to piss while he's been doing his deed, they cannot have heard a thing. In seconds, he is back out into the corridor, through the lounge and out of the residency door. Peeling off his gloves as he runs down the stairs, he allows himself a smile of satisfaction. Killing is easy. And students kill themselves all the time with drugs.
So, does anyone have any questions before we wind up and you can all have a wee drink?
Well, that's one. I think this is your first novel that's set in what was essentially a foreign culture. How challenging or otherwise did you find the process of feeling you were getting it right in terms of things like language and mannerisms? Because the US is a prime example of a country we think...
I actually watched a lot of rubbish on Netflix. Because, you know, they do talk differently. And also, the Douglas Lees was quite good at pulling up some stuff that I'd put in as their friend who's in America. You know, they wouldn't say that. Or I mean, there was bizarre things they say in Casualty and stuff that we wouldn't have said. I can't remember some of them now, like post something, shock. There were some different ways of putting it. So there's a lot of Douglas in it as well. And references I've made to things, no, we wouldn't say that, we wouldn't say this. Because he's lived there 30 odd years now.
Yeah.
So I think it is more difficult. I wouldn't attempt, I really hand it to historical novels and people who set books abroad, you know, who don't live there. It must be very difficult.
Any other questions, anybody?
Oh,
No.
I would just like a little bit of truth to come out here. Who actually told you first that you had to chop your first 3?
Oh yes, that's true. With the first book, the University teacher Kathy, who sadly couldn't be here tonight, but she's going to come to Greenock, she said that I met her in the Champagne Bar in Central Station, and she said, right, I've read the book, now how honest do you want me to be? And I said, well, as honest, you know, there's no point in me giving it. And she said the first 3 chapters have to go. And I did laugh because Norman read it and said, the first 3 chapters really slow it up. You really should cut them out. So that he was the first and most masterful editor. And he's very honest, which is good.
Don't go too far.
Don't go too far.
Can I ask, Ant, when you're writing a book, do you kind of overwrite and then have to sort of fill out the details that you need and take out some of the
They've all been different, really. This one was kind of seat of the pants in a way, really, because I had a sort of deadline. I probably should have taken another couple of months than I did. And so everything I wanted to say was there, but it really needed the expertise of the Sparsile editors, I have to confess, to make this in a more meaningful. Because the other ones, in a way, were going through university time, and you know, I could think of things that were happening and I could slot things in. This one was more difficult.
I seem to remember from talking to you years ago that write it all down.
Well, just keep writing,
Yeah,
because
keep
if you
writing,
stop, you lose the thread, I think. So I'm waiting to hear the background one from the BBC from Jude. That's going to be a stunner.
Interesting one.
What's been your favourite to write, Anne?
I think the first one probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
And do you think if you do write more, it'll stay with crime, or do you think you'll branch out?
Don't know. I didn't set out to write crime. I set out to write things that were entertaining, kind of book I would like. It's maybe got themes or things in it that book clubs might discuss.
Well, if I can just come and say thank everyone for doing so. So thank you, Mary, was it?
Pauline.
See, there we go.
No,
Just
ask them to put the kettle on.
for doing that wonderful reading, sort of Judith and Anne for wonderful conversation, actually, which brought out quite a lot, quite interesting. Thanks you all for coming. That was very good of you.
There's some fizz to drink.
There's some
nibbles.
Books on sale.
And indeed, please buy the books and we'll sign them. And Christmas is coming up, so just remember
It's a
that.
very cheap, personalised present.
It's very, very handy.
Thank you.
So in that case, thank you all very much for coming.
Thank you very much. Thank you.